Welcome to Lunch Hour Legal Marketing, teaching you how to promote, market, and make fat stacks for your legal practice. Here on Legal Talk Network.
What's up, man? How are you?
Yeah, happy Friday.
Happy Friday. It's so nice in Seattle. I hate to tell you, dear listeners, as soon as we're done talking, I'm going to play hooky from my own job and go for a bike ride.
Nice. Good for you.
You got anything going on this weekend?
We have our town does movie in the park night, and so tonight it's movie in the park, so we'll be watching Migration in the Park with the kiddos.
Hey, I'll give you this. Here's a little parenting tip for you. This can blow kids' minds for a long. I hate parenting tips. Here's an idea you can do with your kids. You can buy those massive blow up inflatable movie screens and a really good projector, which you may already have for the office, and throw movie night in your backyard. It is super, super fun. We've been doing that for years. It's a good kick.
That's a great idea. I'm gonna have to get on that.
All right. Allie, can you throw up one of these questions into the interface? Or maybe I need to do that. Let's see what happens. And if you have a question, dear listener, please throw it at us. Okay. I'm going to ask. There we go. All right. You don't have driving powers. All right. We'll figure this out. Here's the question for you, Gyi. While I figure out, you can answer this while I desperately figure out how to throw this up on the screen. My agency says I'm getting, my agency says I'm getting 20,000. Sorry, let's stop with this. My agency says they're lying to you. Okay, next question. My agency says I'm getting 20,000 visitors per month. Yes. An agency pitching me says I'm getting 20 visitors per month. Who's lying?
Well, Conrad, the answer is, in this particular case, probably both. This is actually a real question that I had a conversation with a lawyer about. And
is this a real question with these exact numbers? Or
yes. Well, it was paraphrased. I don't know. Maybe I rounded to even 20 and maybe it was 24 or something. I don't know. Anyway, so here's a question for you, Conrad.
Yeah.
What's the first thing you would ask for the first part? So my agency says I'm getting 20,000 visitors per month. So, okay, that's what they're saying. Where would you go to validate that?
Well, I think the first question I would want to know is what their source is. And if you're looking at Google Analytics and very clear and that I don't think a lot of agencies do because it makes them look smaller, and you're filtering out all the bullshit traffic. Okay.
Yeah.
There's so that's got to be some form of bullshit filter. So if you don't have a bullshit filter on here, and I don't know if you do this, but we every time we find another bot, we actually add it to it. We've got a list of bots we've been collecting for years now. And what it does over time is it drops the traffic count of all of our clients. And when we get a new client, our traffic count looks really, really low. It's like, oh, well, we used to be at blah, blah, blah. We used to be at 20,000 and now we're at 20. So I'd want to know that, like, what source are you looking at in order to make that claim?
So that was my question is well, do you have access to analytics? And the answer to that question when I had this conversation was no. So there you go.
The client didn't have access?
I think that was the direct answer. I don't have that. And so the question was the agency not providing it, or was it a matter of like the lawyer maybe has it but hasn't logged in? You know, that's always the challenge with these things.
Let me start with this. Like, why are you relying on your agency to tell you a piece of data that you actually have access to? It's like having a thermometer and turning on the weather channel if the weather channel is incented to make it look sunny outside.
Gotta have it. Gotta own your analytics. Gotta own your data. Gotta own your accounts. We talk about this all the time. And again, even if this agency is providing that, like that's where you go to answer that question. And I like you went even deeper on it, which is like, let's actually filter this down to relevant as best we can, the most relevant organic traffic that we can, which is, geo filtered and
Okay, so
bot
I was gonna
filtered and
ask you
channel
this.
filtered and blah 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 filtered.
Do you filter just, and this is pure, genuine, interesting question. Do you filter out your reporting, your like organic traffic reporting by location
It
as a
depends on the
default?
client. No,
Okay.
not as a default. You know, we
Okay.
try to create views and dashboards that are relevant to the firm. So there's not really like
Okay.
a default, but this is my thing about all this too. So anyway, that's I think your answer is
Okay.
great. My
Sorry.
first answer is go to the analytics. The second part of it, the agency pitching me says I'm getting 20 visitors per month. And so I'm like, well, so I'll ask you, Conrad, how do you think that this agency doesn't have access to analytics?
Oh, okay. Well, that was my first question. So
Right.
you
Well,
should
look,
be,
the pitch, if the client doesn't have it, the pitching agency doesn't have it.
well, but like this should be like, if you're going to say something to a law firm about their traffic, presumably that law firm has access to their data, and you're not breaking news to them that they don't get any traffic. Presumably that's the case. Now, I'm giving too much credit to this law firm. I can see that I already have higher expectations of this firm than you do.
Well, look, we see, even outside of the context of this particular firm.
Okay.
You know that one way agencies try to come up with visitor metrics when they don't have access is they pitch on third-party data like SEMrush and Hrefs and all the other companies that try to model that data. What do you think about that as a...
Well, can I ask a clarifying question, please?
Oh, of
sir?
course you may.
You said agencies pitch on data. Are you talking? And then you said SEMrush. So this is where... Go ahead.
I said agents. I don't know if I said agencies pitch on data. I mean, look, SEMrush's data, it's just not very reliable, in my opinion, especially on the traffic source. I'm just saying it's not that novel that a marketing agency would use some tool, third-party tool, to be like, hey, you got problems with your website.
Happens all the time.
Happens all the time.
Happens all the time. And honestly, when I talk to some law firms, I will be blathering in the background, and I'm sitting here in the background running site colon searches and looking for stupid things, because there's nothing more fun during an initial consultation when you're like, hey, look, you've got a porn picture on your website. You want to see it during our shared Zoom? Because boy, oh boy, is that awkward, but you're never going to forget us. That's happened to me in the past. So I'll run stuff like that. But I want to narrow in on what you said, and which is why I asked pitching agencies. If you're relying on a third-party tool, if you as an agent, I may be ready to light our relationship on fire with what I'm about to say next, but I suspect that's not the case. If you are using specifically SEMrush to tell a prospect that they're not getting a lot of traffic, you are full of shit, or you're stupid. Right? Tell me I'm wrong.
I'll tell you this,
okay.
Most of them aren't stupid. Most of them aren't stupid. No,
they're not stupid. They're lying, and they know it. They're lying, and they know it. And the reason is, you mentioned this earlier, that data is so inaccurate, and especially it is consistently way low. And you know that. If you've been in the game, you know that. So if you're using that data to pitch a client, like, that is stupid. Because A, you should know it's wrong. And B, why are you lying to your prospect? And C, if your prospect spends a modicum of time looking at their own data, they'll be like, where the hell is this coming from? So
the agency's response is that, well, I agree with everything you said, by the way.
Okay. I wanted to make sure I wasn't ruining our friendship here.
No, not at all. But Conrad, it's the best we have. We don't have access to analytics.
It's not the best. Then don't use it. If like, let me rethink this. If your kid doesn't want to go to school and is faking it to be sick and always uses the thermometer that he knows is 5 degrees too hot, would you use that to be like, all right, kiddo, stay at home, play some video games today instead of going to history class? Hell no. Like, so they know. So
I was with you. my thing. So my answer to this question when I was asked it was both are lying to you, and so that makes that part easy. You can just ignore the liar. You can just ignore both of them because they're both lying to you. But then it's like, okay, here's the other thing. Who cares? Who cares what your overall traffic is? Like, I don't care. Are you tracking conversions? Are you tracking phone calls? What's your maybe you even can talk about in things of like, anyway, but my point is that, look, and don't get me, I'm doing this because, I'm going to do the same thing that we always accuse everybody of doing is I'm over sensationalizing the who cares.
Yes.
Traffic is not a value metric for SEO. How many times do we have to say it? Why is everybody so hung up on how much traffic they have?
I think, can I add a layer to your statement?
Layer away.
I think that individual traffic number is a terrible number. But there's a lot that you can learn by diving into a site.
Yeah. No, of course, but that's, we don't, first of all, we don't have analytics. We don't have analytics.
Oh, okay. So sorry. I'm making the fallacious. So, but why don't we have analytics in this case?
Who knows?
Actually, when you talk to a prospect, it's, do you like, I mean, in a perfect world, we're walking through their data. We've looked through their data. We've got more intellect and value to have this conversation with instead of just being like, you got 18,000 users from Uzbekistan, right? Well, let's not talk about the fact that it's from Uzbekistan but and the agency, if the agency's primary conversation is about traffic, that's stupid because they should have the drill down to speak more intelligently. That if you're a third party, like looking in from the outside, I'd still love to have GA data for us to look at and maybe even a lot deeper. There's more you can find in there, but looking at that overall traffic number, like,
But don't get me wrong. There's all sorts of growing organic traffic, especially if it's in your location. It's a leading indicator of growth, right? I mean, assuming that it's, you're not ranking for pizza and the Detroit Lions, but my issue is that the other obvious one that always gets me on this is, guess what doesn't show up in your organic traffic? Local pack calls, and I'm like, everybody is so hooked on this traffic number, and I'm sympathetic that you're like, well, what are we supposed to measure? And I'm like, yeah, qualified consultations from organic. Like your traffic's a leading indicator. Anyway, I'll leave it at that.
Sometimes. Right? Sometimes.
Right. So it might be a leading indicator of success.
And that, I think, is the thing that bothers me the most, is that if you and your agency have both decided that traffic is a leading indicator and traffic starts to wane, I can fix that with $10.
Right.
Right. And
I'm going to tell you go ahead.
No, go ahead. You dear agency.
I was going to say something controversial.
Okay, go. Really?
Would you rather have Google Analytics data that you have and you can filter channel and you can filter location, or would you rather have Search Console data? I'm going to tell you my answer, and I'll tell you why. It goes to one of the points you're always hammering home.
I think I know. I think we're going to be on different sides on this.
Great, that's good.
I'm GA.
Yeah, because you got multiple sources, right? Or maybe not. Go ahead.
There's more than
I'm thinking just SEO though. I'm just in SEO land right now.
Oh, Justin. I'm still in Google Analytics. There's just I love being able to drill, create filters, and like there's so much you can mess with in there.
The biggest pro to GA is that you can connect it with conversion data, which you really can't do with Search Console. You can model, but here's what you got. Here's what you got in Search Console. You can filter brand versus non-brand.
Okay.
You can't do that in GA. And so what I was going to say that was very controversial is I would rather be able to see non-brand positions and impressions in Search Console than I would raw traffic data in GA. I think if you add in the conversion side of the house in GA, maybe that's a good thing to tip the scales. But to me, you want to measure SEO, and obviously we're Google, it's a Google world here, so this is going to help you in Bing. But you want to know what's going on directionally with your SEO, non-brand impressions and non-brand average positions. If those are growing, because guess what? And especially if they're tagged with UTM parameters so you can see local pack, that's going to tell you what you need to know from a directional standpoint. It might not tell you you're converting, but let me just tell you, if you're in the average one spot, and you've got thousands of impressions for a non-brand query, I promise you your phone is ringing. I promise you.
Okay.
Anyway,
I like it.
That's a good one. This is good.
But I think the nuance here is like the data between the two is not consistent. That is a very
100%. 100%. And you shouldn't be
thing.
Yeah, and you
Again,
I feel like we're playing a game here. You should have both. You should have both. You should have both.
Of course, but like I think most people presume that the data is coming from Google as a single data source, and those two things therefore must align. And that is a very fallacious assumption.
Totally different data sources. And also the other thing that people always miss on this stuff is both sources, even though they're also created separately, they're both, heavily filtered and sampled. So if you're trying to compare GA to Search Console data, you're wasting your time, in my opinion.
All right. I got another one for you. I'm going to throw this up, I think. Here's a good one. There's a bunch now. Let me read this for you.
Okay.
Oh, I got to read the whole thing. Oh, it's too big. Here, we'll do it again. Oh, I think Allie and I are fighting with each other.
Nice.
There we go.
Love it.
All right. Every second, minute, hour, or day you waste focusing your time, attention, and energy on the competition puts your firm at a disadvantage. While you spend countless hours trying to bring this or that firm down or attempt to replicate whatever it is they're doing, you've already lost. Gyi, this is more of I saw that this is not a question that was submitted to us. This is something
it's not a question, Conrad.
Nope, I know, but I wanted my question is, what do you think about ignoring the competition? I've used this phrase in the past, but what do you think about ignoring the because I used to say, like, if you're following everyone else, you're just going to be as bad as they are. What do you think about this?
So I kind of parse this two ways. First of all, I don't think you can ignore the competition. I'll give you an easy one.
Sure.
If you don't know what your competition's doing in local, like in terms of reviews, you have no idea of whether local's even a good channel for you.
Yeah.
So that's an obvious one. Like, you have to at least know. And again, competitive intelligence, like knowing what your competitors are doing. I mean, I think also another one that always comes up in is the, you're doing ads in media and you don't understand what the landscape of what your competitors are offering in your market. There's a missed opportunity. Now that's first part. Should you ignore them? No, don't ignore them.
Okay.
But for the love of all that is sweet and excellent in the world, please don't try to copy them. That is the opposite of marketing. Marketing is about standing out. Can you learn from somebody? Yes. But trying to go out and be that person, you're not that person. Your firm's not built the same way. You haven't had the same experiences. Hopefully you're not in the same market, because then if you're literally copying the lawyer down the street, like, you're not going to stand out at all. And likely the firm that you're trying to copy is at a totally different phase of their evolution than where you are, because you're looking at them being like, they're the king, I want to be them. You're not them. That's why you're thinking about copying them. What do you think?
No, I think it's a simplistic concept to not think. I mean, market research is the. I mean, when you go in and engage with a firm, Gyi, I think if you were to only look at that individual firm, you would have no concept strategically how to move forward.
Right. We wouldn't even. I mean, for us, because a lot of our service scoping is based on how competitive, right? So when we make suggestions,
Yeah.
Of like, hey, where should we spend time and money? It's in the context of where that prospective
where you can
client
win,
is in
right?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, but flip side of the coin, look, I agree that you certainly shouldn't be trying to replicate or copy or, and again, we've talked about this on the pod, but a lot of these newer lawyers or lawyers that might be struggling, they see the big lawyer in their market and they're like, I'm going to go to their mastermind and learn all their secrets. And it's like, well, there's some things to learn there, but you're not going to learn how to be them.
Right. Right. You're in a different place. You're in a different place. Well, what about if your competition's doing unethical things?
Right. Well, that's.
I mean, this is the dirty, underhanded legal industry.
That's what they want. That's what people want to know, right? They want to know. Oh, you've been cheating this whole time. Now sign me up. So, you've got fake followers and fake reviews. How did you get those?
Right. Right. Okay. So again, Gyi will say, know what your competition's doing, but don't follow them, especially if they're playing dirty and underhanded.
No, in fact, you should probably be reporting them, but I know none of you are doing that because
none of you have the guts.
Well, they don't get it's not a great way to make friends and.
Oh, but this isn't about making friends. Maybe
I know. I don't know.
Ben Glass would tell us, be bigger people.
Yeah, but I think Ben Glass would report you. I don't want to speak for Ben.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe we should ask Ben. All right.
Yeah, we should.
Got another one here for you. I'm going to throw this up. Allie, I'm going to throw this up so we don't fight about it. There we go. All right. Let's look at this.
You want me to ask you this question?
Yeah, I mean,
all right.
Okay.
So I do personal injury, real estate, and business. That's my practice. What are some things I should be thinking about from my web presence? Thinking website, Google Business Profiles, etc.
Okay, this is a great question. Your website should look like what you do. Okay, that's the standard part of it, because if
let's go deeper.
All of those things, then you have a problem.
Let's go deeper on that. Okay, go ahead.
However,
shut up.
Here's the big however. I will use Bradley Johnson in Seattle as an example of this, where he's really struggled. Bradley Johnson has been in this market since at least 2006. He's a big radio advertiser. His brand is 1-800-DUI away. And he's done very well in the DUI market in Seattle. The problem for Bradley Johnson is his brand is 1-800-DUI away. And he's maxed out. He can't grow any further. So he's tacked on personal injury, because why wouldn't you, right? And so he happens to, we go back to our last stupid question that we had. Should you ignore what your competitors are doing? In a market like Seattle, right, that is extremely competitive for personal injury, and many markets are, tacking on personal injury onto a website is probably not going to get you anywhere. From an organic perspective, sure, you can blow your kid's college fund on pay-per-click, but like from an organic perspective, it's probably not going to take you very far. Having said that, and then let me flip to another. Johnson's not a client of mine. I've just seen him in the market. I'll use a different example. We have a client who is doing very, very well in a secondary, tertiary market. And they can add anything they want because they're killing it in organic, and the competition can't even try. So I think my answer here goes back to the previous question that we had, is it really depends on the competitive environment in which you are operating.
Let's take it to a Google Business Profile now, because we have a lot more constraints with Google Business Profile.
Category. So let's go. Yeah. Okay. Good.
Go ahead.
No. Go. I've been. Your turn.
Oh,
you're right.
In this particular, this is a real question. And it's funny too, because it alerted me to some of my biases. Because I'm like, look, I'm thinking SEO, I'm thinking local, I'm thinking all these things. I'm like, forget about business and real estate. And he's like, real estate's my number one source of new fees. And I'm like, that's awesome. I'm like, how are those people finding you? He's like, oh, it's all word of mouth referral. I'm like, okay. So that's where and this is why there's not these, this is like to your point, this is why it depends. And this is why agencies need to listen to clients and understand their businesses. And there's not blanket statements. But I'm like, hey, I'm like, you know what? If you're not, I'm like, first of all, do you even know in your area how many people are searching on the queries that your site's currently optimized for in the real estate and business context? And of course, this is say, you know, they have no idea, of course. I'm like, well, first you should validate some of that, just make sure. But my hunch is that you're getting these real estate, like Conrad mentioned, keep real estate and business prominent on your site, but optimize your Google business profile for personal injury, because the real estate stuff is probably not going to be the volume that you're enjoying right now. And I'm like, if you insist on having these multiple practice areas, and also another little nuance here, this firm for Google business profile had at least double the number of positive reviews on Google business profile than the local competition. Now, I didn't go through and see like how many were real estate business versus PI, but they were winning the review game, but they were categorized as general law firm. And I'm like, just go switch the primary category to PI and just go optimize the page that you're using your Google business profile for PI. And I bet you're going to see a lot of improvement in local pack. And so anyway, there's a lot of nuance in there.
There's a lot of nuance, right?
And that's the thing. That's why I even get, sorry, I'm ranting, but I even get worried when we try to make these recommendations. And this is why it's like so important that you really go deep and ask the questions like, what do you want your business to look like? Where are your clients coming from? How diversified are you in terms of practice areas and locations and time and marketing budget? It's so many SEOs would just say, you know, a simple thing. It's like, well, it's like, you're not even asking what what's your objective for real estate and PI? Are you trying to shift from real estate to PI? Are you just trying to catch a couple PI cases, but you're really focused on real estate? Like, all this stuff matters.
Yeah.
All right, rant
all
over.
These little elements really, really matter, right? And it's context, it's competitive context, it's business objective context, all of these things matter. I think this is very, very real. Having said that, you need to think about where you want to prioritize, and then you also need to think about whether or not you can play the game. Can you actually win? I think a lot of people, I think the misnomer, Gyi, is that if you have the right marketing mix, you can find a way to win. I don't necessarily think that's always the case, especially if you lack the budget, right? Like, the right marketing mix might be you need to spend $600,000 on pay-per-click advertising, which you do not have. And the budget is a big component to this. All right. I'm going to throw a new ticker on there. Woohoo. Oh, we've got tickers. I didn't realize that was a ticker.
Love it.
Throw this in there. All right.
Love the
I got another one. If you have a question, ask us in the chat. I'm going to see if I can throw up another banner with, see, this is, I'm looking at the example banner.
All these controls.
I know it's not a creative banner. Here we go. Let's try this. Add banner. There we go.
Very nice.
I'm slowly learning the banner. Allie's gonna yell at us later because I think they were supposed to be running this, and I'll stop now.
I'm sure they're fine with.
We got to get rid of this ticker because it's annoying.
I like the ticker.
Right. You do? All right, here's a different one. There you go. We should have our LHLM advertisers on the ticker. We could have Lawmatics logo. Like,
look at you.
Monetizing. Okay. Can you go through pros and cons of various intake stacks? This is it's not even various intake methods, it's stacks. In-house, virtual
methods. You can just throw methods in there.
Okay. What do you think? In-house versus the virtual versus technology versus This is how I frame this one.
Okay. Let's just set some goalposts.
Okay.
One end of ends of the spectrum, I guess. I like goalposts, I guess. One end is lawyer handles every single intake 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's ideal. They're going to give they're going to control the experience. Now, hold on there a second, Gyi. Assuming the lawyer has gone through extensive customer service training and is
You mean
actually good.
Oh, you
Is
mean
actually good at intake. So
Yeah.
an ideal. So this is the issue. The issue is that intake is a very heavy service experience, customer service, empathy, rapport building activity. It's sales, right?
Are you suggesting not all lawyers have that?
Lawyers hate this. They hate that it's even called sales.
That's true. Yeah.
If but there's another problem, another skill needed, which is, I'm using Robert Reich's stuff. You also requires you to be a symbolic analysis. You need to be able to take the information from the prospective client and make an assessment of whether or not you want to pursue them as a client. And so that's hard. So you need some expertise and you need service. And if I had to pick, I would take service over expertise, because if doing that initial intake is build rapport, gather information, and stop their search. But again, let's just go back to my paradigm here. Ideal situation is you have a lawyer who has that knowledge, who, and not to mention they've got to work 24/7, right? So you probably need a couple of them, because they're not going to cover, and you got to have people who can take, if you got volume, you got rollover. So you need this unicorn person who is maybe a lawyer or a paralegal or somebody who can vet, and they're amazing at service. These people are rare, very rare. They don't exist. More often than not, either the lawyer doesn't take it, it doesn't do a good job of intake, they miss the call, it doesn't scale, yada yada yada, all the problems. The other end of the spectrum, in my opinion, is full technology. Maybe it's IVR, or maybe it's some kind of it's automated in AI intake. Let's make it up.
Would you like to talk about Capture Now right now? I mean, toss that over the plate. Go talk about Capture Now.
So Capture Now is more in that stop the search, completely automated voice response to phone calls. Conrad and I are investors in this company. We are very excited about it. So just disclaim that we're investors so that no one can accuse us of trying to hide the ball on that. But that's the other end of the spectrum. And so what is benefit, pros and cons? Pro, scales. Con, of course, it's not a human being, so it doesn't do all the empathy, but it's not trying to. It's not trying to mislead you. And interestingly, a lot of the data, and again, Capture Now is not the only game in town in this, but a lot of the emerging data in this segment talks about how prospective clients, prospective customers, and even existing customers and clients, they give the automated solution a lot more deference, because they realize they're not dealing with a person. Now, if the user gets to a point where they're like, look, I need a person, you still got to get to a person.
If your AI hears the words operator,
right. So that's the other end of the spectrum.
You have a problem.
Then there's a bunch of stuff in the middle, in the messy middle, right? You've got virtual receptionists, you've got automated with human support, you've got bots, you've got yada yada yada. And and I'm going to share the story of the lawyer that was bringing this to my attention for their particular situation. They're like, we've got in-house receptionists. We are committed. We get it. Service matters. Like we do not want to harm the service level that we get. And so our receptionists are highly trained. They're in-house. And so big surprise, guess what? Having problems scaling. And they're in this situation where it's like, you're in a 3% unemployment market. Even though you can pay your receptionist, and you should invest in them, but you're still going to get people that either, they're sick. You've got a HR issue in terms of keeping that bullpen of receptionist staff that can handle volume. This is a volume-based practice that can handle the volume, do it well, blah, blah, blah. And frankly, to me, there is, until you get away from, until you're able to find a way to manage the volume and filter maybe the, unqualifieds or that kind of stuff. And even the thing is, though, even the unqualifieds, you have to give them a good experience, or else they're going to go leave bad reviews. And
And even the unqualified, like it also just is indicative of if you go to a great restaurant or a great Four Seasons and you're a terrible customer, you still get great customer service because that's who they are, instead of
there.
adapting that to, oh, this looks like a big ticket item, right? You're awesome to everyone. And that's part of your culture.
And so the problem is that, so now you're like, you're in that mindset. You get the service thing. It's all culture service. And then you try to hire a virtual receptionist, and even the best ones, and we are, I will acknowledge that Attorney Sync is a customer of Smith, and we've used a lot of the different virtual receptionist programs. You're largely beholden to, you get a good rep there, great. You don't, you got issues.
But it's not even getting a good rep, because you're getting a different person every time. That is a cycle, right? And then it's just a matter of time before someone's having a really bad day and they don't give a fuck.
So to me, it's a very similar issue. It's an HR issue again. It's just that you're not, they're not on your books. They're, an outsourced contractor. But at the end of the day, it's the same problem. And in fact, that's one of the things that some of the leaders at Capture Now talked about, because they were, they were both at ICE before, intake conversion experts, and that's their conclusion. Hence, that's why they came to Capture Now. And look, they acknowledge too, Capture Now is not the end all be all, and they're not saying that should be a replacement. And so anyway, we're kind of going far afield here, but look, there's pros and cons to all this stuff. And my best advice is to build it around reducing the friction for the prospect, delivering that excellence experience as best as you can, recognizing it's not going to be perfect, putting systems in place to QA, because that's the other thing too, is you set this stuff up and then all of a sudden 6 months later, like, nobody's following the scripts. Yeah. But I think I'm very much like technology on the front lines of defense. If you're a volume-based practice, there's so much noise, filtering spam, vendors, solicitations, yada, yada, yada. You don't want to pay people for that. Then you get into, people that are calling you, and it's like, look, even the most targeted ads, you get unqualified stuff, and a technology can quickly say to somebody, look, unfortunately, we handle car crash cases, and yours is not a car crash case, and give you some blah, blah. Now, again, there's a risk there. There's also a risk with a human receptionist responding like that. Yeah. But I think you can get a lot of that noise under control with tech, and then always in the same vein of delivering a great experience, make it easy and obvious of how they can get to a person when they need to. And you still have to have a human being. And then, is it in-house versus virtual? It's tough. I think in an ideal world, if you've got the economic support for volume to support it, it's in-house. I mean, I taught a lot of these firms, the bigger players that are doing the volume, buying media and doing marketing in nationwide or regions or multiple offices. They're all investing in their own in-house people, because they've tried this, they've tried all these other things, and again, this person's doing this. The firm that I'm talking about is doing exactly that. And he's like, yeah, and I still got a problem because I can't scale. It's a huge issue.
So for me, the answer is, there's simplistically 3 buckets. Number one, you've got, in a perfect world, full-time managed in-house people. Those in-house people might be offshore, but they're still in-house. They know your business. They are managed, and you've got someone whose job it is to listen in on calls and make this job better. Because you're right, Gyi, this is a churning job, right? This is a really hard job. It's a high churn job. I think you find a really good person, you should overpay them, etc. But like, understand that this is a managed, and you have to be big enough in order to have someone to manage a group, right? But like,
and you would, just to take because this is a really good point, you would say, presumably, stick with a manage specific people, not a third party that's going to be cycling people. You want to try to have the same reps on, right?
I think it's important because you've heard this all the time, like the third parties. And by the way, and again, also a Smith client, the upside of the third parties is it is cheap and it's on demand. And if you're smaller, cheap and on demand that is Merry Christmas, wonderful. The problem is they don't know how to, that it's Conrad Saam and not Conrad Sam. They don't really know anything about my business and they don't really, really care. They will do a good, but never great job. That is a fact.
I want to also make a huge distinction point.
Yeah.
The people that are calling Mockingbird and the people that are calling Attorney Sync, which we are, also clients of Smith,
Yeah.
they're going to give a lot more deference to, hey, I get that you're using this reception service than someone who searches Google for car accident lawyer, right? Like these people are most of these people are coming because they're like, I'm trying to get a hold of Conrad, or I watched, Conrad on the podcast. Look, we want Smith to answer the phone with the correct name, but they're not immediately hanging up all the time because we're using Smith, right? Which they will in the car accident context.
Yeah. You know who I'm talking about. This week, I traveled to Omaha. I went to the client's building out in the outskirts of Omaha, and the door was locked. It was a big office building, and the door was locked. So I call in, and very nice receptionist. And I said, "Oh, I'm downstairs. Can you let me in? Please hold while I find the appropriate party. Who are you here to see?" So not only did the receptionist mispronounce the first name of the partner who I was there to see, also didn't know the last name. It was like, I'm here to see Mary. Well, not Mary. And I'm here to see Melinda. Oh, you're here to see Belinda. No, Melinda. Melinda who? Belinda Smith from the Smith
who's
law
on
firm.
first?
Like I literally had this conversation. So, but like that's going to happen and that's okay. And the trade-off is it's on demand and it's low cost and that's fine. The tech, as long as you understand that it's tech, can be amazing. I do think there is a wide spectrum of, frankly, garbage to really good tech. And I do think that's something to take into account. That is not a false concept. All right, I'm going to move on and ask you a different question. This is going to make you annoyed. Here you go.
What are you doing differently after the Google leak? People are going to have to tune into the pod because
that's right. Maybe we can't tell you because we could use this as a teaser to listen to the pod.
I'll give this as and I think I say this in the podcast, but I would first of all, let's tell everybody about the Google leak because people don't know what it is.
The Google leak happened on this Monday. I think the news hit the interwebs. I think that's correct. My days are kind of storming, but a engineer at Google got his hands on some API information, sent it to ex-SEO mouthpiece Rand Fishkin, who then sent it on to current SEO mouthpiece Mike King. And it's more information that we have about what happens behind the curtain on the Google algo than we've ever really had before. To date, it's been conjecture, testing, and listening to people from Google either tell us the truth or not. And now we've got some documentation. So that's the Google leak. So Gyi, how have you changed everything since Monday?
Well, and before I give you my answer, the couple things we have to remember, and a lot of these publishers that you mentioned also talk about this, but we don't actually know which of these things in this document, the API repositories, are currently in use, have ever been in use, are have been deprecated, whether they are direct ranking factors or training the machine learning. And so anyway, there's all sorts of big grains of salt with all of this stuff. And again, I'm very much like, you test your own stuff, because even if you had the algorithm in front of you, it could mislead you to drawing a conclusion that's not actually what's ranking for your search queries. But trying to be tactical and constructive from all of this, so I kind of answered it this way. If whether they're in-house people or agency, whoever your marketing people are, if they're like things like links don't matter, right? That's like the most egregious example. go search the developer documentation. I think it validates a lot that links still matter a lot.
Yeah.
If you're there, and there's a bunch of other things like that, but if you ask me, like, tactically, nothing's really changed. Maybe I would say I would reprioritize some ways that we think about um, link building and content, maybe. But honestly, if you've been basically three buckets your whole SEO existence: technical, content, links. What are you going to change? What are you gonna maybe you're not maybe, and maybe people are like, well, they mentioned site-wide authority metrics. So should I go back after like these major publishing sites? And I'm like, no, because in my experience, that's not the location stuff. And there's a lot of stuff on location. Shotland at Local SEO Guide, he's got a good thing on it. David Mimmet Near Media, which we mentioned on the podcast, so check that out. There's a lot of good local stuff to think about, but don't go chasing algos. Keep it to the users and the clients you're used to. It's my TLC.
That's hitting the outtakes. Left eye.
I just came over
T-Boz and Left Eye. That's
I'll be honest, I'm not.
This goes back to, I believe, 1994.
Don't go chasing algos. Don't go chasing algos.
But so I think, dear listener, I think the reason you're getting what you got from Gyi is because he's been in the game for a long time and he's been using
too long
results. Too long. Don't hang it up, man. Don't put the cleats in the bag for the last time. He's been using data and performance to guide his tactical execution. And that's why he gave you those answers, because what Gyi, and I would argue Mockingbird, has been doing is we've been letting the results speak for themselves and becoming for me, Gyi, I've become increasingly cynical.
I didn't think I could become more cynical, and yet here we are. It's like my perspective of the political process. Oh, wait, don't do that.
And so from the things that I hear, let me go back, revisionist history. You asked me 15 years ago, 2006, 2007, 8, when I really didn't know what SEO was, I pretty much let Matt Cutts preach gospel to me from an SEO perspective. I, at this point, don't believe anything I hear out of Mountain View. The only thing that I'm more confident in now is what has been leaked out of Mountain View, which validates the reasons why I thought what I was hearing from Mountain View didn't line up with the things that I was seeing from performance.
And it's funny because I came at all this from a slightly different perspective and experience point, but I was always like, Google has no incentive to really tell you how to rank. Now now again, and I don't fault people are always like, well, you think Google's lying to you? I'm like, they've got these PR folks, they've got some people that are like, quote unquote, on the web spam team. These people are way smarter than I am about information retrieval. They're way smarter than me about many, many things. Everything that has to do with Google, they are smarter than I am. My issue was always this. You'd see somebody, you go to one of these webinars, one of these very nice Google PR people, and they're giving you, I don't think they're ever trying to lie. They're working with the internal people at Google. That they probably have some guidance from legal counsel about like how much you can even share and all this stuff. And so they're very limited in what they can share. In my experience, they've been very nice people, and the fact that they try to share anything, like, I'm grateful for it. But huge grain of salt, because they work for Google, and Google makes money off of ads. They don't make money off of helping SEOs help their clients rank better, and they don't make money off of helping their clients convert organic search traffic into business. And so I've always been like, look, it's good to keep an eye on what they're saying. Try to see directionally where they're going. That's another piece of the whole thing with them. A lot of what they say is aspirational. They're like, this is what we want the machine to do. This is where we're trying to go. Obviously, it's not there yet because spam works until it doesn't, and things that they say shouldn't work are working, and just create great content. So anyway, I'm very deferential. Like I don't try to beat the Google. Google as an organization, I'll beat up all day. But the people that are actually talking, look, they're doing the best they can, but there's no incentive for them to share anything. But the other big problem I have is, to me, this type of thing hits me just like core algorithm updates and Panda and Penguin. The SEO industry lights up with, hey, we've got this special Google leak sauce. Come download our guide. Come sign up for our webinar. Come to office hours and talk about the Google leak, because we've got the secrets.
We know.
You have no secrets. You have no secrets.
I put this to another level. If you've learned a lot, if you think you've learned a lot from the Google algorithm leak, you probably didn't know much to start out with.
Well, and again, this is where I'm even worse than that, because they know better. They're just using it.
See, yeah, okay. Well,
They
now
know.
you're talking about some specific people now.
I'm talking about a lot of people. A lot of
Okay.
people. I mean, look, every algorithm update, everybody jumps on it and is like, "We figured it out." Hey, whoever you're using right now, they're not aware of what's going with the algorithm update. And also, the other one I hear all the time is the algorithm update is the excuse for what the problem is.
Let me
the
tell
algorithm update.
I would love, and I would encourage agencies, and I would encourage law firms when they're listening to agencies or deciding who to listen to. If you listen to agencies share their data and information anonymized based on changes, right? So like, okay, the leak comes out, we've done X, and after that, Y happened. If you can actually show that being responsive to this, or when the core algo changed, that you're by and large, here's a case study, or all of our traffic went that way. If you can start doing that kind of stuff and drawing analysis across multiple data points, listen away. I think that's helpful. And it doesn't need to be the agency trying to just cherry pick the good stuff. You can share what didn't go well. It's just as valuable. But I think it's fair to like, oh, we just had AI look at all of the Google leak documents, and now we know the secrets. Come send me your email and I will download you the seven secrets to dominate your market. Blah.
And look, there's some, don't get me wrong, there's some nuance in there. There's some things that might help inform your strategy. But for the large extent, go ahead.
The nuance one that I like, that I'm going to stick with it. I told you so when I called it, when I saw generative search come out. Authorship, man, is a very real thing.
You should not say authorship. You know what you should be saying is eat. You should be saying EAT.
I hate eat.
Well, the problem is when you say authorship, everybody's thinking rel equals author. And
because no one who's listening here has ever coded rel equals author.
No, but other SEOs
will listen to us. Okay, that's fine.
You're gonna be like, Conrad's an idiot. He's still talking about authorship.
The concept of authorship.
Why don't you explain what you mean?
For those of us,
I agree with you.
Okay, so the authorship, I love this anecdote because there's so much to this, and then we should.
But this isn't new for you, though. By the way, this isn't new. It just is a validating thing from the leak.
It's valid. It's me getting to sit on my little box and tell you I told you so. Let's be honest, which is self-serving and annoying when people do it, as my mom would tell me. Be a better person, and I'm
trying not to do that.
I know. You're not saying I told you so. Don't say I told you so in marriage, and ideally less so. Or not as much when you are an agency. But I'm going to break that rule. Except never to my wife. Never I told you so to your spouse. Ever. Back in, I can't remember when Google Plus came out. It was way too long ago. But Google came out with this concept called authorship, which was basically the theory behind authorship is if Gyi writes an article about local SEO for lawyers, they should recognize that Gyi is a well respected authority on that. And regardless of where that actual post goes, it should get a boost because of Gyi as the author. Okay. And the way they did this initially was they used Google Plus profiles, and you could literally hard code into a piece of content where the author's profile in Google Plus was. Now, there's a company that you all know and hate called FindLaw that started selling pre-SEO'd websites, including switching that relic was authored to the new whoever was to purchase that piece of content. So what they would do is they would SEO up a website and get you to pay for it, and then they would resell that to someone else, and they would just point the relic was authored to the new author of that piece of content that had already been written, which is really, really, really dodgy. But I digress. That kind of stuff happened, and Google and Google simultaneously, Google Plus did a complete belly flop. No one cared. They weren't going to take down Facebook. Those two things happened roughly at the same time, and they got rid of relic was author. But I never thought they actually did, because the theory is so very, very obvious and salient and useful. Gyi writes a post about SEO for lawyers. That should, regardless of where you publish it, that should actually rank better than it would if my 8-year-old son did that, or my 13-year-old son. Time flies. So when Search Generative Experience came out, one of the things that they talked about was about this author. And so they would throw up a piece of content, or they would throw up the authors from whom they were generating some AI content, and they would show you an AI generated overview of that author. So it seemed to me that it was really important who wrote the piece of content as a ranking factor. Additionally, in Google Business Profile, they started to try and automatically add in your social profile into that. And now you can actually edit and add to that, so it is more accurate. And then this Google leak happened, and there's a lot of content in there around authorship, or the concept of who wrote this and finding out who wrote it. So I will continue to believe that it's very important, if you are an authority figure on a piece of content, on a subject matter, that you help Google understand that you are an authority on that. And that's it. So I got
one extra add-on to that, which again, validated by the leak. People are just, in Google's eyes, people are entities, brands, whatever you want to call them. And when someone searches with category keywords plus a brand name or a person's name or a lawyer's name, and they're disproportionately getting click data, because we know Google's capturing the click data, how can you not think that's why do you think you see brand names show up when you do non-brand searches and auto suggest and related searches and blah, blah, blah? Because from Google's perspective, those names are associated, and some of that is based on search query data and clickstream data. And so it's the same thing. It's just another signaling way that Google can tell the difference between when something is about John Morgan and something's about not John Morgan.
All right. Do we want to do one more? Or do you want to wrap it here?
We're wrapping.
We're wrapping. All right.
Go hit the trails. Take the rest of the afternoon off.
It is beautiful, man. Look, man.
Get outside. Everybody get outside. Stop listening to us. Oh, yeah. The one sunny day in Seattle. Oh, Conrad's gone silent because he broke his machine from whatever he touched. He probably touched something that muted his mic. And so with that, we'll say thanks for those who listened in. Please check out our next podcast episode, and look forward to joining us for the next office hours. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend, everybody.